My last few years in seminary down in southern Indiana, I took every opportunity I could, as many weekends as I could, usually about once every 6 or 7 weeks, to go and visit my brother and sister-in-law in Lexington, Kentucky. And at the time, they had 2 children. They now have 3, but they had 2 at the time, and the youngest was Killian, and he was still just a baby. And then Isabella was his oldest sister, or his older sister, and she was still she was older than a baby, but not, and she was 3, 4, 5, somewhere around there in those years. And I loved going to visit them because it gave me kind of this front row seat for a little while to see what it's like raising young children. And my favorite moments over those weekends were kind of the routine miracle of getting kids ready and going to church. And one, there was the smaller miracle that neither my brother or my sister-in-law killed one another. And that really was a small miracle on those mornings. And normally Saturday night, the kids would go to sleep, and then we would stay up late and just catch up. And then I'd sleep on the couch, and all I had to look forward to was just getting up the next morning. Normally in those days, Maria and Adam, my brother and sister-in-law, they would have to get up at least 2 or 3 other times before it was time to get up in the morning to walk with Killian, who was a very colicky baby. And so normally when they woke up in the morning, they were much more tired and just dragging. And it was really something to see. And so my only job first thing in the morning was to get the coffee ready. And so there was coffee. And as I learned over the visitations, that I just needed to kind of stay out of the way in those mornings, because anytime I tried to help them, I always made things worse. And it always started with my brother, who on Sunday mornings, it was kind of his job to get the kids ready, get them dressed out of their PJs and dressed for church. And who knew? Kids hate to get dressed. They hate to be taken out of their PJs and put into uncomfortable clothes so that they can go to Mass and look presentable. And so the house was just filled with screaming, a screaming son and a screaming daughter. But my brother would manage, and he'd get them dressed and downstairs. And by this time, my brother's just overwhelmed. And so he would shoot that first shot across the bow of my sister-in-law. He would say, "Maria, where are you at? It's time to go. The kids are ready, I'm ready. Why aren't you down here?" And that would just set my sister-in-law off. But we would all eventually pile into the car. I'm in the back seat with the kids, trying to keep them from fighting one another and keep them entertained. And there's Adam and Maria, my brother and sister-in-law, in the front seat, not saying a word to one another, just taking a moment and trying not to kill each other. And so we'd get to the church, and they would do the quick double check of the diaper bag. And it was only in these visits that I realized why a diaper bag is so huge. A diaper bag, in my mind, is kind of like what Air Force One is to the President of the United States, right? The President can run the nation from Air Force One for a very long period of time. A family can run their family, parents can run their family for weeks on end in a diaper bag. It just contains everything. And so they do kind of this quick double check. Did they get enough diapers? Is there enough food? Are there toys? Are there books? Are there wipes? Are there whatever? And inevitably, there was always something forgotten. And my sister-in-law would then turn to my brother and take a shot across his bow. If you wouldn't have been rushing me and, worrying about me, you could have been looking over the diaper bag, making sure everything that we need is in there. And so we would eventually get through the diaper bag check and on our way into the church and get the kids in there. And then everything was nonverbal from that point on, right? It's just glares going between the two, trying to contain the kids and keep them in their pews, not from crawling underneath them, getting Isabella to stop talking to the people around us, during Mass. And so while it was a small miracle that they didn't kill one another, the real miracle came in just a moment at Mass that oftentimes we treat with such informality. It was the sign of peace. There was the moment when they would lean across their children and they would just give each other a small kiss, a peck, and say peace. And as if to say, let's move on. We'll put this morning behind us and let's move on. Peace. And that is what our Lord offers us on this Divine Mercy Sunday, is the ability to move on, to move forward, to leave the past as the past. And it's important that we realize, in the gospel today, our Lord says, peace be with you to his apostles 3 different times. 3 times he says, peace be with you. These were his first words on that Easter Sunday morning to his apostles. It's important that we realize that these guys didn't deserve a peace be with you. These were the 12 guys that were maybe some of the biggest failures in the history of all saints in the Catholic Church. They never seemed to get it at all, ever, in those 3 years of following our Lord around, constantly questioning, constantly doing the wrong things, constantly missing the boat, never getting our Lord's point. And then when our Lord finally enters into his passion after the Last Supper, he calls the 3 supposed great ones, Peter, James, and John, and he takes them out to the Garden of Gethsemane and asks them to be with him in his most agonizing moment of his life, the agony in the garden. And what do? They fall asleep, as if to tell our Lord, you're all alone in this. You're all alone in the most agonizing moment of your life. And we know Judas betrayed him. Peter denies him 3 times, and all of them except for the women and John, the beloved disciple, all of them abandon our Lord on his cross. And the first words of our risen Lord to this group of so-called apostles was peace. Peace be with you. The past is the past. Now we have the resurrection. And our Lord gives us this great gift to just live in the present and look forward with hope to the future. Today, on this Divine Mercy Sunday, brothers and sisters, peace be with you.